Hey everyone, welcome back to today's video. In today's video, we're going to cover exactly when should you hire someone for your 3D printing business. We're going to cover exactly what you need to do when you're looking to start hiring someone, more specifically if you're already selling 3D printed products and or you're already an established seller who's looking to get someone on their team and who's looking to grow and scale. Now, the reason why I'm making this video is because as you start to grow a business, as you start to scale, and more specifically, as you start to accumulate more machines, more products, and actually start building more of an income and hit those revenue goals month over month, at some point, building a farm, building any sort of business, it gets very overwhelming. Over time, you start to get overwhelmed. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. Admin, support, products, shipping, labeling, all this stuff that comes into the picture. And what I want to do in today's video is just share my experiences after hiring people, exactly what you need to know when it comes to hiring, and more specifically, exactly when do you know you need to hire someone. So with all that said, what we're going to do is jump right into this document and get right into it. So when it comes to hiring someone, there are three things that should happen if you want to hire someone. So the first one is, why is hiring important? When should you hire somebody, and who should you hire and how to onboard them? And as well as a bonus, which is the mistake most people make when they are hiring. So the first thing we're going to cover here is, why is hiring important? And I want to bucket this into three forms of buckets. And bucket number one is, why is this important? So there's a level of time freedom that you get when you hire someone. There's a certain level of mental load that is taken off of you when you hire somebody. There is also income earning activities that you can focus on when you hire someone as well. And what I want to do is just cover each one here and just share some of my experiences after hiring people. And just to be very clear, I've only ever hired overseas workers. I never actually hired anyone in-house because I can actually manage most of the packaging and shipping, but mainly the overseas work that I do get is mainly either designing, customer support, or admin work, and or content creation. In your case, it might be different since I have a much smaller sort of studio and office. But my main point here is that if you are selling online and or if you're selling in volume, then you will probably have to hire someone in-house and actually bring them in and train them in the same way as you hire overseas. Although the difference is that when you hire in person, the culture is different versus when you're hiring or working remotely. So the first thing is time freedom. So time freedom is basically when you get your time back and work on needle moving activities. So when you're hiring somebody, you're basically giving them a set salary, a wage, you're paying them whatever set amount of dollars per hour. In exchange, they're going to focus on tasks, or you're going to delegate tasks to them. So that way you can allocate other times or other portions of activities to basically they can work on something that you're already working on. And then that allows you to free up time so you can focus on other things. And that's one of the reasons why you would want to hire. The second reason is the mental load. There's more focus and less distractions. So for me, for example, I really want to organize my focus as much as I can. I really like to not have distractions. I don't like people getting in the way, people bugging me, asking questions, these sort of things. When I'm focused, like when I'm in deep work, I focus, like I'm all in, like I'm lasered in. And when you hire somebody, you're able to release some of the delegation tasks where it doesn't require too much time focus or too much mental load. And then you can focus on the stuff that actually moves the needle forward. So for example, packaging products and shipping those things out, it doesn't take a lot of mental focus, but that's still energy that's expended by having to do those things, or having to check emails and having to follow up on support requests. That is time and energy and focus that you're losing out on because you have to do those things. And truthfully, you don't have to do those things on your own, because honestly, those are the sort of activities that don't make you money. Although, there are things that happen after the sale. But my point is that you've already made the sale. Now it's time to go make some more money, or to produce other products or produce other things that are going to make you more cash. And then lastly, income earning activities versus admin work. And the reason why this is important is because, for example, have you ever spent a day where you're doing all admin work, but you got nothing done? So you might feel like you did a whole bunch of stuff in your business, but in reality, when you actually sit back and reflect on the day, you actually did just a whole bunch of different things, and actually not on the things that actually move the needle forward, which is why we want to put a heavy emphasis on income earning activities. And if you're able to focus on these things, this is going to allow you to accelerate your business. And here I have a small pin up here of basically what the benefits of hiring are. So you have time freedom, reduced mental mental load and you can focus on income earning activities. So for example, there's a quick exercise that you can do right now, especially if you want to really figure out how much time you're wasting on a daily basis. So think about all the work you do in a day. Then write down how much time you spend on each task or job. So just get a pen and paper on your notepad, whatever you're using, and just write down exactly like what are you doing on a day-to-day basis. Like actually sit down and think about what is it that you're doing. So if you spend 2 hours on content creation and then 1 hour on editing and then 2 hours on customer support and then 2 hours on packaging and fulfillment and then 1 hour of prep and maintenance, then you can kind of see at an overview, you're spending 2 hours on, content, then 1 hour on editing. So that's 3 hours. If you go into your office at 9, by 12, that's 3 hours. It's already lunchtime. And then lunchtime is an hour. And then you're spending 2 hours on customer support. You come back at 1, now it's like 1 to 3 p.m. And then you're spending another 2 hours. And then that's from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. And then you're spending another hour, which is prep and maintenance, which is 6 to 7. And although that might be a productive day to some people, like you're getting a lot done, truthfully, you can delegate customer support or packaging fulfillment or even admin work to someone else, which frees up, say 4 to 5 hours of time so you can focus on content creation, which is pushing out more product. And or if you're not good at content creation, you can hire someone specifically around that and have them produce content and market your business. Albeit that I would say that you should still learn how to do content creation and learn that side of your business, because no one's going to fix that for you, especially if you don't want to do it yourself. So my point here is that by doing this, it allows you to see from a high level view where your time is going and gives you ideas on how to delegate your work to someone else. So my main point here is that if you're spending 4 hours on things that honestly are not moving the needle forward, customer support, email, admin, anything related to just follow up or, dealing with post service, or maybe onboarding clients, that sort of stuff you can delegate to someone else, and you can just focus on other things that we can bring in more cash and more sort of opportunities into the business. The next thing I want to cover here is bucket 2. So when should you hire somebody? Now, I want to be very clear. There's not some hard line or some preset boundaries that you need to follow before you hire somebody. Truthfully, you would know when you need to hire somebody when you start to feel it. Like once it starts to interrupt your personal life, once it starts to overwhelm you, once you start to feel like business is growing but you can't keep up, you will start to know when you need to hire somebody. And I've kind of listed out a couple of things here that should pretty much give you more clarity as to when you should hire. So bucket 2, when should you hire someone? When work starts to interrupt your personal life. Now, I want to be clear. When work interrupts your personal life, I don't mean that, you get home 30 minutes later than you should. Or your job is, maybe it's just a little bit more work than you anticipated, and or you have to spend weekends. Truthfully, if you're running a business, you have to spend weekends regardless. Like it's just hands down. You're spending Monday through Saturday, at least Saturday, even half of Sunday sometimes, to work on your business. But what I mean by interrupt your personal life is that your health starts to deteriorate because maybe you can't catch up. Your mental well-being starts to deteriorate. Your relationships start to deteriorate. Maybe your kids, your time with your kids, your wife, your spouse, whoever you're with right now, you're not able to take care of yourself and show up in the way you should show up within your business. If it starts to impact those areas, then hiring somebody might help alleviate some of that. Now, keep in mind, I'm not saying hiring somebody will solve all those issues, but you would know, for example, if hiring somebody would give you more time to spend at home with your newborn, then it just makes sense to hire somebody. And that's something you will need to do in order to grow, in order to spend more time or do what's most important to you. Second, when admin work and customer support takes hours to complete, which is busy work, not productive work. Now, let's be very clear. Admin work like bookkeeping, like organizing files, organizing 3MFs, or setting up the prints, or following up to emails via emails, and then reaching out to customers, make sure they pay their invoices. That is not productive work, really. That's work you can truly just delegate to someone else and or have someone overseas do that on behalf of you. So I'll go into that more in the next one and the next bucket. But my point here is that the work you should be doing, it should be income producing activity work. Like it should be the work that moves the needle forward. And if it's admin work or customer support, you can pretty much delegate that work. And if it takes too much time to do all of that stuff, then you really need to figure out exactly what are you doing wrong in terms of that time and where that time is going, and figure out how and who you can delegate this work to. And lastly, if you're making at least 5 to 10 grand a month profit. So I'm being very clear with this. I'm being very clear about how much you need to make profit. Now, I'm not saying revenue like before expenses. I mean profit, like everything like has to decide after taxes, after expenses, after your rent, after home, after all that stuff. How much money do you have left over profit that you can actually use to hire somebody? And this is going to become important because if you want A players, if you want rock stars, if you want people who are going to put their best foot forward, you're going to have to spend some money here. Like, you're not going to be paying someone minimum wage at the cheapest dollar value and expect to get this rock star player. It just doesn't work like that anymore. And my point here is that when you hire somebody, it should be very intentional. Like, you would know when to hire somebody, and it's going to be intentional. So if your business is preventing you from dedicating time to your personal health, well-being, family, and most importantly, your focus, then it might be time to hire. And I want to be very clear. There's no like strong line on this here. And the reason for that is because we'll cover that in bucket 3. But I would say 5 to 10 grand, because if you're hiring in person, then typically you're going to have to pay either a little bit over minimum wage and or a little higher in order to get someone who actually understands what they need to do and someone who actually can be self-sufficient. That's kind of like what we're looking for. Now, bucket 3 is who should you hire and how? And this is the biggest question I get from most students within the program. Like, most people, they don't know how to hire. They've never hired somebody. You might have, work experience from managing teams. You might have been a manager at a restaurant. You might have some experience having to work with people. And if you ever had that experience, you know how tough it is to work with other people, let alone one person or even 5 people at a time, especially since when you work with so many people, that builds culture. And if you have the wrong culture, that's going to really ruin your company's success and vision. So who should you hire and how? So the first thing is here is that we want to be very intentional. I'm being very clear with this. We want to be very, very, very intentional with what does your dream candidate look like? And I don't mean physical, like who are they? What do they do? What are their interests? What are their passions? What are their hobbies? Do they have a degree? Do they not have a degree? And we're just basically filtering, like we're basically casting a net over the whole population in the world. And then we're just filtering it down based off of the criteria that fits who you are as a person. So, and let's just be honest, like if you're someone that leans to the left, you're not going to hire someone that's far leaning to the right. Let's just be honest. And not to be top political here, but let's just kind of keep it on a level playing ground here. You're going to typically hire people that think the same way as you. You're going to typically hire people who also set yourself up for success. But ideally, you need to hire someone that's actually a good candidate for what you're looking for. Not because, they have the same interests or the same opinions, but truly because they are good at what they do and they can provide value to your company. The second thing is, should you hire overseas or in person? I'll cover that in just a second, but you can actually hire people overseas versus in person. So if you need someone to do labor work, grunt work, or any sort of packaging, shipping, anything like that, then in person would work best. But if you mainly need like customer support or admin work, you can actually hire overseas, and typically the rates for that are much lower. So if you're paying someone $20 an hour for a minimum wage, or let's just say around $20 an hour to work at your place of business, then overseas you can charge for anywhere between $5 to like $6 an hour. So that's only because someone is overseas. And here within the US, at least in the United States, here in California, the cost of living is astronomically higher versus someone overseas. That's not how I set it up. That's just purely how it is anywhere in the world, right? Especially if you're hiring overseas. And also how to properly set expectations and how to set them up for success. So the main reason why I'm covering this is because when people hire, they typically expect the new hire to just know everything. They expect a new hire to just catch on. They expect the new hire to just kind of figure it out, but that's not how things work. So, like I mentioned early on, what does this person look like? What skills does he or she have? Do you need a physical body? Do you need labor or grunt work, local, in person, someone who's going to handle packaging, retail, and support? And or if you don't, if it's just admin and support, then you can rely on overseas workers. They're cheaper. Support and admin roles, they're also very good at it. And there's a lot of people who are willing to take this on for you during working hours in the US. The last thing here is draft up exactly what this person does daily. So write SOPs or standard operating procedures. So when you're hiring, you need to be crystal clear as to what this person looks like, what their daily role will be, and exactly how they're going to do it, SOPs. This is how every company operates. Every new hire or talent that joins their team needs an onboarding system to train new hires to get them up to speed. It's your job to be crystal clear about their position. Never assume your new hire would know what to do. So I mentioned here SOPs, and if you don't know what SOPs are, basically these are standard operating procedures that basically, it's like a training manual you give to someone. So for example, if you're learning soccer, you're not going to go straight into a live match. You're first going to learn the basics. Then you're going to do some drills. And then you're going to do practice sessions, and then you're going to practice over and over and over until you get to that point where you're able to do live matches. And the same thing applies here. Your job here is to make it as crystal clear as to exactly what this person's going to do, exactly what that job looks like, and A to Z, exactly what's the steps to actually do that job. And by setting the proper expectations, by jotting down SOPs, by being very clear as to what that looks like, it's going to be very seamless to hire somebody. And truthfully, they're going to thank you for it. You're going to thank yourself for it. And truthfully, there's not going to be any tension or any unnecessary things going on that could prevent you or him or her from doing their job. And then lastly, the last thing I want to cover here is mistakes most business owners make when hiring. The first one, and I'm going to just kind of run through this. First is assuming the new hire will work just as hard as you. Anyone you hire will not work just as hard as you. You care about your business the most, and that's just how it is. And if you expect anyone you hire to care as much as you, you're setting yourself up for success. Just understand people are looking out for their own best interests, which is totally okay. Just if you understand human nature, that's just how things are. And it's a very transactional thing. That's just how working a job is for people. So just be okay with that. 2, expecting too much soon. So if you're expecting your new hire to just kind of know things right off the bat, to know how you think, it takes time. You start to work with people, you start to understand how people work and operate, and then you start to understand exactly what they like and what they're interested in. So my point here is don't expect them to know too much too soon. Don't expect them to work as efficiently like you too soon. And truthfully, it's okay to make mistakes. Don't ever be too hard on someone, especially if they're just starting out, and especially if, because more specifically 3D printing, it's a new thing. Most people are not generally interested in 3D printing. It might be popular online, but in person, it's a different thing. And lastly, not having clear boundaries about work. So you should also be very clear about the schedules. So if someone is willing to work from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., set a proper time as to when is lunch, when are breaks, and exactly what hours are they working, and as well as what hours can they actually ask you questions. By doing this, you're setting boundaries. They know exactly what's going on, and that way you're setting yourself up for success. So when you start hiring people, you will eventually learn over time how people work and think. It's your job to understand the dynamic between a hire and as an employer, and that most things aren't really personal. So with all that said, we basically covered everything. We basically boiled it down as to, first thing, why hiring is important. Second thing, when should you hire somebody? And then lastly, who should you hire and how? And truthfully, this is information that I wish somebody had presented to me when I was first getting started. Right now, I have a virtual employee, which does a lot of my admin, design, and content creation. But that's because I'm at a scale where I'm not really focused on high volume printing. I'm more so focused on design services and providing value to my clients in that sort of fashion instead of selling 3D prints. But for you, it can be very different. If you're selling 3D prints, then, at some point, the workload does get overwhelming. I remember a time when I was selling 3D prints, and a lot of my time was consumed on just creating the product and then packaging it up and then having to drive out and then ship it out to the post office. So, as you start to grow your business, you'll start to understand exactly what you need out of it and what you need to put into it in order for it to, to grow. So with that said, that pretty much wraps up everything. If you are a complete beginner who wants to learn how to create their own designs, I want to personally invite you to the 14-day challenge. If you're interested, you can either click the image here or click the link here. It's a 14-day challenge showing you exactly how to design your own models for 3D printing. But if you're an established business owner and you already have a 3D printing business and you want to learn how to scale your 3D printing business and implement some of the things we covered here in today's video, click the image there to the Print to Product program or click here. But with that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video has been insightful and informative. Make sure to like, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.